Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 7th June 2023 and these are all the articles that we are going to discuss today. We are also including mains related articles in view of the upcoming UPSC mains. The first article talks about an indigenous heavyweight torpedo. The name of this torpedo is Varunastra. So a torpedo in crude language, it is nothing but a underwater missile. So this is a anti-submarine torpedo and it can be used in all naval warships. So it is called as Varunastra, named after the water god Varuna, and it is a ship-launched anti-submarine torpedo. It was developed in the Naval Science and Technology Laboratory, Visakhapatnam, under DRDO. So, which lab of DRDO, that is not very important. You just have to understand that this is a indigenously developed torpedo. If you have seen this movie Ghazi Attack, it shows how torpedoes are deployed in anti-submarine warfare. Moving to the next article, it says that according to ministry report, 508 districts in the country are free of manual scavenging. But for the past 2-3 years, we have been hearing that India is completely manual scavenging free. But this particular report from the ministry says that only 508 districts in the country are free of manual scavenging. So there is a kind of confusion in this, and this article tries to clear that confusion. Let's get into the article. So out of all the 766 districts in the country, only 508 of them have been declared free of manual scavenging. So that is what I already said, right? In every parliament session, ministry denied any manual scavenging deaths also. So how this is possible? In the past 2-3 years, did no manual scavenging related death happen? The reality is that it happened, but it is more of semantics. These deaths have been attributed to hazardous cleaning of sewers and septic tanks. They have been classified and listed under another head. So that is why it is seen that there has been no manual scavenging deaths. So basically, why the government has been saying that India is manual scavenging free only if 508 districts are officially declared as free of manual scavenging? This is because there was a scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers, and this particular scheme, it identified 58,000 sewer workers. So because the scheme identified these workers and they have been given options for rehabilitation, the government documents mention that India is completely manual scavenging free. But reality is depending on how many of these 58,000 workers were rehabilitated. So what does this scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers say? It gives a one-time cash payout of 40,000. Once they are free of manual scavenging, immediately they will get a one-time cash payout. And 22,000 of these rehabilitated manual scavenging workers, they have been connected to skills training programs. So they will get necessary skill training so that they can restart their lives. And if they want to start any business of their own, for that also subsidies and loans are available. Now recently what happened, this particular scheme, it has been this particular scheme, which is the scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers, this has been merged with Namaste scheme. So this Namaste scheme, it has a goal of 100% mechanization of sewer work. So now we understand the logic behind merging the Namaste scheme with scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers, because mechanization of sewage work and rehabilitation of sewerage workers, it is forming two sides of the same coin. That is why there is a logic in merging these two schemes. So in budget 23-24, they have allocated 100 crore rupees for this Namaste scheme, and no exclusive allocation has been made for the rehabilitation scheme. So which means the mechanization of sewer as well as the rehabilitation, they have together gotten 100 crore rupees allocation. So what does this scheme demand? We already saw about the scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers. Now what does Namaste scheme want? What duties does it impose on various districts of the country? So basically, as per this Namaste scheme, 4,800 urban local bodies, they have to be identifying and profiling all septic tank or sewer workers in their respective areas. So these people, they will be provided with occupational training, they will be provided with safety equipment, and they will also get health insurance under Ayushman Bharat scheme. There are other interventions also. These are all the major interventions. So they will be given occupational training to handle the machines which are used for sewerage cleaning. The main important scheme related point is that these manual scavengers under Namaste scheme, an important thing is they will not be reaching anywhere near the human fecal matter. This process is going to be completely mechanized. Now we will learn more about the Namaste scheme. It is a central sector scheme, which means 100% money comes from the central government, and the nodal ministries which are responsible are Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. We already saw about mechanization, that these manual workers, they will be given occupational training, they will be given health insurance, etc. Apart from that, sanitation workers, they are collectivized into self-help groups, and they can run sanitation enterprises via this self-help group. So already we saw about occupational training. Then these workers will be given PPE kits. Okay. Also, apart from that, assistance for safety devices to sanitation response units. This will also be given. As we already saw, Ayushman Bharat Jan Arogya Yojana. Under this, they will be given health insurance. There will also be a livelihood assistance. So, there will be funding support in terms of capital as well as interest. They will be given funding support, and they can procure sanitation related equipment. So the aim is to rehabilitate in other sectors, or even if they are employed in the same sector, they will not be physically cleaning out. They can run sanitation enterprises individually or through self-help group, and whatever capital is necessary for running that will be provided. Assistance will be provided. Another important aspect is information, education and communication campaign to improve the awareness related to the scheme and the perils of manual scavenging. So this is very important. This Namaste scheme, it can be asked in the next prelims or any upcoming examinations. Alright, now we will go to the next article. This is a very interesting article in terms of capturing the changing dynamics of the world, particularly in technology domain, and based on that how countries need to adapt. So we will see into the nitty-gritties of this particular article. So what is a nation state? We have to first understand. Nation state, if we have to define it in simple terms, it is a geographical unit in which citizens live. So is it just bounded by geography? In modern days, it is not just geography. So what is a nation state? I will write it in simple terms. These kinds of questions are asked even in prelims in terms of conceptual questions. Nation states means there is a geographic unit, and there is a sovereign that is governing this particular geographic unit. So this sovereign can be king or queen, or it can be a democratically elected government. So India has a definite geographic boundary, and there is a sovereign that is governing this geographic boundary. So far we know that this is the definition of nation state. But this notion is changing because of technology. Why? See, today the boundary is not just limited by geography. Say for example, you are chatting with your friend on Facebook. Even if you are chatting with your college friend who lives maybe 5 kilometers away, the message that you type, it goes to servers in the US. Then it goes to your friend. So this is the way in which technology operates. Technology operates across borders. So cross-border operation of technology, it kind of erases the notion of nation states, because this data is going away from the border of India. This is just one example. There are numerous other examples. Say for example, even if you go to a new place, you will be operating GPS, right? And the data for that GPS, the Google Maps data, that is also not stored in India, right? And if Google Maps is providing someone a wrong information, and because of that some mishap happens, who will be penalized? Because the servers or the data provider is not located in India. So these are all some new emerging issues. These are not clearly delineated. That is what this article is discussing about, right? What is a nation state? The notion itself is changing because of technology. Why? Because of cross-border nature of technology. They are giving example of cyber attacks. So these cyber attacks, they take place across the border, but it will have ripple effects on the physical boundaries and challenge their socio-economic and political existence. Say for example, in US, there were allegations of cross-border interference in the election machinery. Though it happens across the border, it can be treated as a cyber attack, but it had ripple effects in the political existence itself. Similarly, say for example, before a couple of years, there were allegations of disruption of Kudankulam nuclear power plant software. But though this attack is taking place across the border, it will affect the entire socio-economic setup. It will affect the entire political existence also. So that shows the all-pervasive nature of technology. All-pervasive nature of technology. So today we have technologies like Web3, massive peer-to-peer networks with Facebook, in which we can connect with our peers. That is a simple example. More complex example of peer-to-peer network is blockchains. So these technologies are in boom today, and it has allowed both state actors as well as non-state actors to influence various things like trade, commerce, health, education, even if they are remaining outside the financial and judicial scope. Say for example, recently Yes Bank created a blockchain for disbursing credit, and that was supported by some other foreign company. So they are remaining outside the judicial scope, but the impact is across various sectors like trade, commerce, health, education. Do you understand? So this point is nailed again and again, and the author seeks to make us understand this point. Another thing is that geography-based rules are no longer easily enforceable. Say a crime is happening in the state of Delhi. and if the criminal or the accused, they escape to another state, then what happens? There will be cooperation of that particular state. Say he flees to Madhya Pradesh. Now Delhi government or Delhi police will coordinate with Madhya Pradesh police to catch that person, right? So similarly, here with respect to internet, there is no geography based rules order, because every online activity or rather a virtual activity, it is cross border in nature. Even if you are buying something as simple as toothbrush from Amazon, so conventional geographical borders in the era of high technology, they are declining in significance, like how the cooperation is needed between different states in India to enforce our criminal law. Similarly, in the internet based economy, we need cooperation of across the border countries to properly enforce. Enforceability is simply not possible within the geographical boundaries. Like I already said, any form of virtual activity, it is not just confined to the realms of the borders, because data travel on the chain of the World Wide Web and it spreads across the world at speed hitherto unimaginable. We have undersea cables, satellite communication, through which data travels across continents and at a speed unimaginable. So in that case, virtual activity is not restricted by geography, and it is also very difficult to apply any country specific legislation because of the universal nature of technology. So this is also giving problems with respect to enforceability. Enforceability means if there is any problem that arises, who will be penalized? Who will penalize? All these things are murky in our digital domain. So entities, whether it is Facebook, Google, any internet based company, they have transcended physical boundaries and they collaborate with the rest of the world independent of traditional administrative and regulatory institutions. So there is no boundary at all with respect to company. So couple of months back there was an editorial saying that in olden days there were countries, now there are only companies. So that much importance has been given to companies because of their sheer size and the amount of data that they control. To explain this further, we have topographical maps. These maps used to be produced only by public institutions or military institutions, but it is now available entirely by private non-state actors such as Apple or Google Maps. Like I already gave this example. So the domain of public and private is also becoming murkier. The domain of borders, national borders, physical borders is also becoming murkier. So the author is giving a wonderful example. Say, he is saying that the American tech companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, they together have the valuation of $4,100 billion. And they have surpassed Germany's GDP in terms of valuation terms. Germany is the fourth largest economy in the world, and this particular companies, they have surpassed even Germany's GDP. So imagine the level of cloud influence, the level of money, the amount of data these companies control. So the author also says that imagine the amount of levers that they possess. Levers means the degree of control that they have because of the data and their use. So the data, it has become important raw material of our times. They say, right, data is the new oil. That is being true in modern days. Only a handful of companies, they have unparalleled economic power and influence, because with this data, with manipulation of data, even governments can be sent out of power. Such is the level of power commanded by these companies. And India also has been stressing for global governance related to digital technology, the borderless nature of technology. So that becomes difficult for any country to enforce it. And there is also anonymity of actors involved. Nobody roams with their real name on Twitter. There are many fake accounts on Facebook. So there is anonymity. So these things have challenged the traditionally accepted concepts of sovereignty, jurisdiction, regulation and privacy. So India is demanding a principle-based global order for technology. So this would help in streamlining the enforceability challenges. And these challenges arise due to the borderless nature. It arises due to the anonymity offered under the garb of technology. Say if there is a new pandemic, it has been proposed that digital health would be helpful in combating any future pandemic. But how is this possible if there is no global order? First of all, the basic infrastructure and whatever the rules governing that infrastructure must be there. Failing which, digital health will not be coming to fruition. And how will we handle the complexities of future pandemics? In that angle also, a global order for technology becomes important. And now India is having the G20 chair. So India can push for such a global order for technology so that there is value given to national jurisdiction, sovereignty, privacy, etc. So that is what this article talks about. Whatever it talks about, it simplifies in one sentence in its title. A global order as technology's much needed pole star. Pole star is the guiding light. A global order is needed as a guiding light for development in technology. And this is not just related to internet. This can be applied to AI, machine learning, everything. Okay. Let us move to the next article. It says that internet economy will hit $1 trillion by 2030. So B2C, that is business to consumer e-commerce firms, online service providers, edtech companies, together they will hit $1 trillion in valuation by 2030. And in 2022, their valuation was $175 billion. And soon they will hit $1 trillion. So this has been mentioned by a report by Google, Bain & Company and Temasek. They conducted a research on Indian market and they have come up with this conclusion. This is because more and more Indians would start to transact online and there will be an expansion of digital businesses. And this particular growth will be spurred from Tier 2 plus locations. Tier 2 plus means Tier 2 cities, Tier 3 towns, Tier 4 towns, villages, etc. Why? Because only 13% of Indians live in metro and Tier 1 cities. And remaining, they live in the Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities and towns and villages. So, if there has to be growth at such a massive scale, that will be spurred by Tier 2 plus locations. Okay, and health tech and insurance tech, they are both sized at less than $2 billion today and they will demonstrate the largest expansion. In the previous article also we talked about digital health that will gain more traction in the coming years. That is why they are saying health tech will grow at a very good pace. Insurance tech, because there is risk involved in a modern economy, in an internet-based economy. Particularly, these technologies will help in reaching this $1 trillion of internet economy by 2030. Now, we will go to the last article of the day. It talks about the WHO's pandemic treaty, and particularly within that it talks about antimicrobial resistance. We will go into this in detail. So, there is a pandemic treaty or pandemic instrument. So, this has been made available to the member states in World Health Assembly. This World Health Assembly, it is the governing body of WHO, or rather the highest decision making body in WHO, where all the member states meet and collectively take decision. and they are negotiating this pandemic instrument. Why this instrument is being negotiated? To protect nations and communities from future pandemic emergencies. What needs to be the safeguard, and if at all a future pandemic comes, what needs to be done, what needs to be the standard operating procedure, all those things are being discussed under this pandemic instrument. And in this, many critics, many researchers, health sector experts, they are saying there is a silent pandemic of antimicrobial resistance. These are keywords which can be directly lifted and used in your mains paper. So they are saying that there is a silent pandemic of antimicrobial resistance. And this particular antimicrobial resistance, whatever provisions are related to this in the pandemic instrument, they are at risk of removal. And that is why this concerned article has been published in the newspaper. So before that, we should learn what is antimicrobial resistance. It is a process by which infections caused by microbes become resistant to the medicines developed to treat them. They outgrow the medicines. Like how children outgrow their clothes, these infections, they have outgrown their treatment. They have outgrown the medicines which are used to treat them. And this AMR can be in bacteria, fungi, viruses and parasites. All sorts of parasites are included in AMR. This is very important fact for MCQs. They can ask AMR is observed only in viruses, fungi. Then they'll say 1 only, 2 only, 3 options are correct. So in that it may be asked. So AMR is fueling the rise of drug resistant infections. There is drug resistance tuberculosis, which India is already battling with. There is drug resistant pneumonia. Like this, many drug resistant versions of diseases are coming up, which is a challenge to the public health system. If there is even another viral pandemic, the main problem with this pandemic instrument is that, see, COVID-19 was a virus-based pandemic, and most of the provisions in this pandemic instrument, it is related predominantly to virus. But the next pandemic need not necessarily be because of virus. It can be because of fungi. It can be because of bacteria, right? So there is a comprehensive nature that is needed of the pandemic instrument for it to be really effective. Okay, so even if there is another viral pandemic, even if we go with the best case assumption, there will be secondary bacterial infections which will be a serious issue. Say for example, even those who were hospitalized during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were infected with pneumonia, which is a secondary infection. COVID-19 is the primary infection and pneumonia is a secondary bacterial infection, and it needs antibiotics for treatment. But what happens? Antibiotics are becoming more and more effectless because the microbes are becoming more and more powerful. So there are only a few drugs which are as effective. That is why the author of this article says that safeguarding the remaining effective antibiotics, very few effective antibiotics remain. So this is critical to responding to any pandemic, and we should also develop new antibiotics to combat the AMR. So in this direction also research is needed, and these things has to be included in the pandemic instrument. That is what is discussed in this article. Now we will discuss some previous year questions. This is from 2018 prelims. Economically, one of the results of the British rule in India on the 19th century was the increase in the export of Indian handicrafts. No. Indian handicrafts, they were dilapidated because of British rule. Growth in the number of Indian owned factories. No. There was very little industrial development. Commercialization of Indian agriculture. Next option. Rapid increase in the urban population. There was an increase, but it was not a rapid increase. So this option is correct. And Why it is commercialization? Because in the British period only, there were various settlement systems that were introduced, like Rayatwari, like Mahalwari, Zamindari. So many settlements were introduced, and for that patta was needed, and this marked clear commercialization of agriculture. We even had the indigo cultivation. So this is a commercial cultivation. So this shows that as a result of British rule, there was commercialization of Indian agriculture. So C is the correct answer. Next. In which of the following areas can GPS technology be used? What we use in maps? Mobile phone operations, yes. Banking operations, yes. If the banks are providing loans for construction of any infrastructure, they can use GPS and do geotagging, right? So that way it is useful for banks also. Controlling power grids, yes, for all these three options GPS can be used. So D is the correct answer. Next question. The Reserve Bank of India manages and services Government of India securities but not any state government securities. Treasury bills are issued by the Government of India and there are no treasury bills issued by the state governments. Treasury bills are issued at a discount from the par value, which is correct. So this is correct. Treasury bills, if it is marked for 100 rupees, it is issued at discount from par value. It might be marked at 100 rupees, but it is issued at discount, like say for example 95, and this difference is the interest. So third statement is correct. Yes, second statement is also correct because state governments cannot issue treasury bills because treasury bills are short term instruments, which means which are under 1 year maturity. So they cannot be issued by state governments. The first statement is wrong because Reserve Bank of India acts as banker for both the Government of India as well as for the state governments. So the correct answer is C, 2 and 3 only. So that's it for today's discussion. Follow us on all the social media platforms. This is Indumati signing off. Thank you and all the best.